Good morning, everyone. I love all the chatter this morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a spiritually diverse, justice-seeking religious community, proclaiming the power of love at the core of our living tradition. Love of our neighbor, love of ourselves, and love for our planet. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, however you identify, you are welcome here. I am Sharene Watsen, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am your celebrant today. We have music today from Carrie Bastian and Julia Pope. Julia's on cello, and Carrie will be on piano. And I'd also like to thank Justin and Dennis, our AV team, and our greeters and ushers and hospitality crew who all make this morning's service possible. Let's take a moment to welcome our online community. We have cameras back there. Those joining us via Zoom, good morning. And I'd invite you to look around the room, find someone you know or don't know, give them a wave and a smile, and maybe go greet them after the service. Special welcome to our newcomers and those joining for the first time. We know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're glad you've chosen us. We invite you to introduce yourselves to us during our hospitality time after the service, or if you're online, introduce yourself in the chat. Please fill out one of our newcomer forms found in the entryway or in the chat so we can keep you up to date with all that is going on in our community. I have one announcement. The Fascism Fighters group that Reverend Sarah is going to be leading will be starting on Tuesday at 6:30 here at Booth, and all are welcome. Each week, we begin our worship service centering ourselves by lighting the flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We light our chalice in solidarity with thousands of other Unitarian Universalists lighting chalices today across the globe, reminding us that we are connected to a great community of faith and love. As we light the chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you in our virtual community to light a chalice or a candle if you have one nearby and share in the chat where it is lit. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, and join together in singing our opening gathering hymn, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky, number 203 in the gray hymnal. Number 203.
We come from and live on land considered sacred by many indigenous peoples, known as Bannock, Shoshone, Paiute, and many other tribes that lived here sustainably for thousands of years, inhabiting a vast region including much of Idaho.
We recognize the long history of the land, long before colonization, and acknowledge the ancient tribes whose names have been lost in history.
With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our commitment to dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor Indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
In the challenges of these truths, may we move through the world bringing justice in every way that we can, listening to the truths spoken to us by Native American peoples, making space for them to re-inhabit this place, and giving them back the resources they need to heal their communities.
Our guest preacher today is Rabbi Emeritus Dan Fink, who served at the Congregation Ahavath Beth Israel, the synagogue here in Boise, for 30 years. He's an ardent environmentalist who enjoys hiking, canoeing, biking, and kayaking. He is the author of numerous works on Judaism and environmental policy and is a certified forest therapy guide. In today's service, we will explore the premise that we live fuller and more authentically human lives when we embrace our animality and our kinship with the more than human world. As we enter into this time of worship, let us take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, and to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity to tune in to our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
Good morning. I want to share just a little context with you, and Julia will come up in a moment to, yes. You were looking like you're getting settled there. Anyhow, I want to give you a little context for our music this morning. So when I learned that our sermon topic would have something to do with animals, the first thing as a musician that came to my mind was The Swan by Camille Saint-Saëns. And I thought, I'll give Julia a call, see if she can play that and maybe has some other animal type pieces. And when Julia showed up for rehearsal, she brought that along with a book of other songs or pieces that actually is what we're going to perform today. And when she tells you about them, it just so happened that this type of music fit well with the fact that we have our rabbi here with us today. So I'm going to let Julia tell you about the music itself.
Thank you, Carrie, for letting me be here today. It's so nice to be invited. So this particular composer and I first became acquainted in the summer of 2020, which was a fun summer for all of us. We got a lot of reading done, a lot of gardening. And he posted on the International Cello Facebook page that he was working on a project of klezmer pieces, and he needed some cellists who would be willing to record these and then put them out into the world as a type of international community building during that very, very difficult time. I was one of the cellists who agreed to work on this project, and as a thank you, he gave me not one, but 2 books of cello pieces for klezmer. And it's really fun. He's a great composer to work with. We've worked on 4 or 5 other projects since then. So every time I work with this music, it reminds me of that dark and very difficult time that we were going through as a planet, and how the musicians would come together and make something beautiful out of it. So thank you. Our first piece is called Share, which translates as lion.
To worship this morning is All Animal Chalice by Mark Cossey. Our lit chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, reminds us that we all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds. We are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing. Being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent. And it is good. Blessed be. Come, let us worship together. With our promise of building beloved community, we celebrate our commitments to being a multi-generational community, a community of generosity, and a community of care and connection. In that spirit, I'd like to invite our Director of Family Ministries, Travis, up for a time for all ages.
All right, how's our thumbs doing? Mine's a thumbs up today. Good to see, good to see. So today we're going to do an experiment, what I call a group visioning experiment. So here's what we're going to do. Let's all close our eyes. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Now we're thinking about a place very far away, maybe somewhere deep in the forest. It's like you can hear it, right? It's like you can hear it. Yeah. Let's open our eyes. Where do you think we are? Any ideas? Oh, I like that. Amazon. We're in the rainforest. And we're going to listen to the story of the great kopok tree. So one hot day, a larger man and a smaller man were walking through the forest, and they came to the great kopok tree. And the larger man, he pointed to the tree, pointed to the younger man, and then he left. The younger man, he pulled out his axe and looked at the daunting task set before him and started chopping. Whack, whack, whack at the great kopok tree. But it's a very hard tree. It's a very old tree. And he wasn't making very much progress, and he kept on whacking, and soon he became very tired, and he decided to take a nap. And as he napped, animals who lived in the great kopok tree decided to pay him a visit. So first came the boa constrictor. The boa constrictor slithered down the tree. And he said, "Sir, this tree, it is my home. My ancestors have lived here. Please do not chop it down." Next came a bee. And he said, "Senor, my hive is in this tree. I pollinate the trees throughout the forest. Please do not chop it down." Then came a group of monkeys. And the monkeys say, "We've seen you humans before. You come in, you decide to chop one tree down. But then that's never enough. We chop another and another and another, and pretty soon the roots start dying. And when the rains come, there's nothing to hold the soil. And the great forest turns into desert." A frog hopped down the tree and said, he says, A ruined rainforest means ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you drop down the great kopok tree. And down came the jaguar. And the jaguar said, this tree is the home of many of the things that I eat. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner? Does anybody have any ideas of what other animals could be coming down the tree? Spiders. Birds. I like birds. I like spiders. What else was there? Insects also coming down from the tree. Worms, reptiles, of course, reptiles. Fireflies, all sorts of things. Actually, some porcupines came down. Yeah. Says, we animals and humans kind of need oxygen to breathe. If you cut it down, that will destroy everything that gives us life. And the anteaters came down. It says, if you chop down the tree, you're thinking of now and you're not thinking of the future. You're not thinking of those who will come after you. And the slow sloth came down. And she said, how much is beauty worth? And finally, a small child from an Amazonian tribe who lived in the rainforest, he says, Senor, when you awake, please look on us with brand new eyes. But when the man awoke, he looked around and he was silent and he took in the great rainforest and he made a decision in that moment that he put down the axe and he walked back home. So, yeah, he walked back home. He set down the axe because he knew the cost of cutting down the tree would be just too great. And that is the story of the kopok tree. And what this story reminds us is that us humans, we're not separate from nature. We're not separate from nature. We're part of it. But sometimes, like the man with the axe, we forget or led astray. And he chose wisely. He remembered that we are all part of this web of life. And here at Boof, our religious exploration program also helps us remember that too. It teaches our children and reminds us that we belong to the web of life and that our choices matter. And just like the rainforest, our RE, religious exploration program, needs many voices to thrive. So I invite you all, and many of you have taken me up on it, to consider adding your voice as a volunteer this year. We have information. Kathy will be manning or staffing the booth out in the front. If you ever have any questions, let me know. Thanks.
Let us all join together in singing our community blessing. And the children can join Travis. We're heading out that door. The words are printed on your bookmark found in the seat back pockets. When we give, we say yes to the natural cycle of abundance in our lives, and we say yes to building beloved communities within and beyond our walls. We commit ourselves to do work for justice and compassion for all people and our earth. Today, we share those gifts with our plate partner, our very own Reverend Elizabeth Green Booth Pay It Forward Fund. This fund was created to address a need among our own Booth community for short-term emergency financial assistance. Over the years, funds have helped members and friends stay in their homes, pay for groceries, utilities, medical expenses, and other basic needs of living. For our offertory music, Julia and Carrie will play Shalom Aleichem from the same suite, evoking the Garden of Eden. I invite the ushers to come forward, and our offering will be gratefully received. Ushers bring our gifts forward. Please join me in collective blessing of our offering. The words are printed on the bookmark in your seatback pockets. We bless these gifts so freely given. May generosity always be our companions as we walk the holy path toward ever greater compassion and beauty.
Our reading this morning is a biblical passage from the book of Numbers, chapter 22. The Holy One's anger was kindled because Balaam was going to curse the Israelites, and the angel of the Holy One took his stand in the road as his adversary. Now Balaam was riding on the donkey, and his two servants were with him. The donkey saw the angel of the Holy One standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. So the donkey turned off the road and went into the field. But Balaam struck the donkey to turn it back onto the road. Then the angel stood in a narrow path between vineyards with a wall on either side. When the donkey saw the angel, it scraped against the wall and scraped Balaam's foot against the wall, so he struck the donkey again. Then the angel went ahead and stood in a very narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left, a rock wall on one side and a steep cliff on the other. When the donkey saw the angel, it lay down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey a third time with his staff. Then the Holy One opened the mouth of the donkey, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you right now." But the donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your donkey, who you have ridden all your life to this very day? Have I been in the habit of treating you this way?" And Balaam said, "No." Then the Holy One opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel standing in the road with the drawn sword in his hand. And Balaam bowed low, falling on his face. The angel said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? I have come out to stand against you because your way is misguided before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If he had not turned away from me, surely just now I would have killed you and let your donkey live." Then Balaam said to the angel of the Holy One, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now therefore, if it is displeasing to you, I will return home." The angel of the Holy One said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you to speak." So Balaam went on with the officials of Balak. Our music for reflection now is Parpar from Yochai's Garden of Eden. The world is now dominated by an animal that doesn't think it's an animal. It's blindingly obvious, and yet some part of us refuses to believe it. We tell ourselves we have unique souls. We say there's a person inside us more important than the body from which it is made. In this way, the bodies of other animals come to mean nothing. We may use them as we wish. So opens Melanie Challenger's book, How to Be Animal. In the ensuing pages, she explores the many ways that we deny our animal nature and the disastrous consequences of that denial, from ecological devastation, mass extinction, and climate crisis, to our culture's deep-seated fear of death and profound existential loneliness. By refusing to recognize that we are animals, living and dying in bodies that have co-evolved with an animate earth, we have cut ourselves off from the rest of the Holy One's creation. So what do Judeo-Christian traditions have to say about this great divide between humanity and our fellow creatures? Over the last 60 or so years, critics have pointed to passages in our sacred texts that create and sustain this problematic human-animal binary. In Braiding Sweetgrass, the botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer contrasts the opening of Genesis with indigenous creation myths, noting that in the Western tradition, there is a recognized hierarchy of beings, with the human being on the top and the plants on the bottom. But in native ways of knowing, she tells us, human people are often referred to as the younger siblings of creation. We must look to our teachers among the other species for guidance. Kimmerer and others, beginning with Lynn White in a famous article in 1967, argue that Jewish and Christian theologies rooted in the Genesis story disenchanted, then systematically exploited a previously animistic and eco-friendly world. And there is a grain of truth in this critique. The Genesis narrative is hierarchical. Humans alone are created in the image of God and given dominion over other creatures. And conservative-leaning Christian and Jewish defenders of the anthropocentric status quo still wield these verses to justify environmental subjugation for human gain. But our traditions are, thankfully, much more nuanced than that fundamentalist reading of Genesis 1. To delve deeper is to find an expansive body of tales and teachings that subvert the binary and emphasize the kinship between humanity and the natural world. The book of Proverbs implores us to learn industriousness from ants, ingenuity from spiders, and community from swarming locusts. The book of Daniel recounts an epic story of how, at the peak of his arrogance, King Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful ruler in the world at the time, is physically transformed into a wild beast, wandering Babylon on all fours for 7 years until he gains the humility that restores his humanity and reestablishes his reign. And Jewish mystics expanded the narrow Genesis notion of being created B'Tselem Elohim, in the likeness of God, to encompass not only humans, but a whole array of additional beings. As Rabbi David Seidenberg notes in his book, Ecology, Mysticism, and Creation, these strands from the Kabbalistic tradition support a far less hierarchical structure of creation, in which the divine image embraces the expansive, more than human world. And within the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible itself, one of the most powerful correctives to the denial of our core animality can be found in the story of the Midianite prophet Balaam, from which I read. The Moabite king Balak, as the story opens, is afraid of the Israelites wandering in the desert toward the end of their 40 years and approaching his land. So Balak hires the prophet Balaam to curse the Israelites and thereby defeat them with supernatural force. And this is no joking matter. In a world where the word has profound power, Balaam's abilities are real. Whoever he blesses is indeed blessed, and whoever he curses will be truly cursed. But he is also a mercenary who uses his power to enrich himself. So he sets out to do King Balak's bidding, riding his donkey along the mountain road to the Israelites' encampment. And there in the high cliffs, this remarkable encounter unfolds. God sends a messenger with a sword to block his passage. The angel sees it and stops short, but Balaam is blinded by his greed and his conceit, and he sees nothing. He beats the animal. The scene repeated 3 times, with the donkey continuously resisting the prophet's violent goading. And then, in the plot twist, the Holy One grants the donkey the power of human speech. What have I done to you that you've struck me these 3 times? You've made a fool of me, says Balaam. But the donkey replies, haven't you ridden me all your life? Am I in the habit of treating you badly? And God opens Balaam's eyes and he sees. And God says, your path is disastrous. The donkey sees. You, the prophet, have seen nothing. And Balaam apologizes and proceeds on his mission and ultimately will speak words of blessing. Reflecting on the story, I see Balaam as a kind of emblem of all of us, of contemporary humankind. Our narrow-minded path has brought us to profound environmental and personal peril. In denying that we are animals, we refuse to see. We shred the delicate web of mutuality that binds the living ecosystems of this earth. And when we shred that web, we endanger ourselves, all of creation. Our culture is as blind as the prophet Balaam. It is highly accomplished by many measures, and yet mortally and morally impervious to the ominous signs all around us. Deaf to the voices of the more than human world that cry in anguish and rage and anger all around us. Instead of hearkening to the wisdom of the Holy One's creation, we keep kicking and beating it when it's down. It is long past time to open our eyes, our ears, and our hearts, to acknowledge who and what we truly are, and to redefine our fellow beings through reciprocity rather than dominion. It is no accident that when the rabbis of the Talmud look at this story of Balaam, they emphasize mutual relationship. as Tractate Avodah Zarah expands upon their dialogue, Balaam tries to minimize his connection with the donkey. When the donkey says, "Am I not your donkey who you have ridden all these years?" In the Talmudic version, Balaam responds, "Akrai ba'alma," merely every now and then on random occasions. To which the Talmudic rabbis have the donkey correctly respond, "Me'odecha va'ad hayom hazeh," actually for your entire life, to this very day. The donkey's response is an appeal to companionship, to a relationship forged over decades together. Against Balaam's denial, she insists that the human and the donkey are friends and partners. The donkey's message to the prophet and to each one of us hearing the story is an essential corrective. It is a restoration of our animal nature and an affirmation of creation's foundational dignity. It echoes Robin Wall Kimmerer's indigenous wisdom that all flourishing is mutual, that we are bound in a covenant of reciprocity, a responsibility to sustain those who sustain us, humans and donkeys, mountains and mosses, rivers and seas, the whole glorious, awe-inspiring, more than human world. To take this message to heart, to hear the words of Balaam's beloved animal, and embrace our own animality is not always easy. It can be a fearful thing to acknowledge that as the embodied animals that we are, we will all know illness and pain. We will sometimes suffer because of our bodies. And ultimately, like every animal and every plant and every living thing, we will die. But that knowledge of who we really, deeply, truly are is also a source of community, of consolation and blessing. And so in that spirit, I close with a passage from the eco-philosopher David Abram's gorgeous book, Becoming Animal, that on this morning feels very much like a kind of benediction. He writes, "Our task, owning up to being an animal, a creature of earth, turning our animal senses to the sensible terrain, blending our skin with the rain-rippled surface of rivers, mingling our ears with the thunder and the thrumming of frogs, and our eyes with the molten gray sky. This vexed being in whose flesh we are entangled, becoming earth, becoming animal, becoming in this manner fully human." Amen.
Each week, we take time to acknowledge the many joys among us and to grieve our many sorrows and losses, so that we might lift that burden for each other and receive the blessing of this community. It is through our sharing with one another that we forge deep bonds of community and connection. We begin by sharing this sorrow. Lori and I's 9-year-old niece, Harper, has been in the ICU the last few weeks with kidney issues. She's making good progress, but she still has a long road ahead of her. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name aloud into this community of love that we may hold them with you. May the arms of this community hold all our joys and sorrows, those named and those that remain silent and close to our hearts. Let us together take a deep breath in and out, releasing the sorrows the world knows too well and finding comfort in our companionship with one another. Recognize that you are part of a whole and holy community where joy and woe are woven fine. Our prayer today is by Rebecca Edmondson Lang with a bow to Isai Barnwell and Stephanie Kaza. Spirit within all, mysterious force giving shape to life, miraculous source and river of being, help us to know who we are, to see our place in the history of the earth and in the family of things. Help us to see that we are part of all that ever was, our grandmother's prayers and our grandfather's dreamings, our mother's courage and our father's hope. In our bones lies the calcium of antediluvian creatures. In our veins courses the water of seas. We are part of all that ever was, born of this earth, riders upon a cosmic ocean. We are not separate from nature. We are nature, part of that same spirit that turns scales into feathers and birdsong into speech. We live by the sun. We move by the stars. We eat from the earth. We drink from the rain. Oh, Great Spirit, help us to know who we are and fill us with such love for this holy creation and gratitude for this awesome gift we call living, that we might claim our inheritance and live out our calling to bless the world and each other with our care. Amen. Before our closing blessing, Julia and Carrie will play the title piece from In God and Eden of the same name.
Really sitting nicely and quietly kind of peace. Just so you know.
flash mob. And we'll wait for all the dancers to return. I invite the rest of you, or if you're standing, please stand and place your hands over your hearts for a closing blessing from Gary Kowalski. Go in peace, speak the truth, give thanks each day. Respect the earth and her creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body. It is a wondrous gift. Live simply, be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your path. Walk in a sacred manner. Blessed are we all. Go in peace.